We're going to start to move into some of the initiatives that are happening. And it's delighted. We've got a real warrior in the mental health area coming to speak to us now. Tass, and I always struggle with your name, Tass, but it's Mousaferiadis. Did I get that right? That's good, because it was just a guess. Tass currently works for Beyond Blue and is working in the area of men's mental health, and has been one of the movers behind using that man therapy stuff that all us cricket lovers saw over the December period. So could you welcome Tass to be with us?
Thank you, John. What a hard act to follow. I'm not here to sing today. I always did want to be musical. I always tried to play a guitar or a piano. The last time I sang publicly, I was told, don't do it again. So, unfortunately, you've got me speaking at you today. I'd like to thank Jorgen and John for inviting me to speak here today. It's great to be able to share some of the work that we do at Beyond Blue. What I'd like to do is to talk briefly about who we are, what we do at Beyond Blue, a little bit about why we actually do have such a huge focus on men and men's mental health, and then to talk a little bit about our Man Therapy program, a campaign which is an idea that we have essentially borrowed. We did a great partnership with Sally and her team, so thanks Sally. I met Sally on Monday. We brought her down to Melbourne for the day and had a good day with Sally and picked her brains and got lots of new ideas and creative ideas happening. So I'll just showcase our campaign. Can I just have a sense of how many people have actually seen the Man Therapy campaign? Great. Okay, good. Fantastic. That's consistent with our research. I probably ought to also say that the Man Therapy program has been funded by the Australian government through the Tackling Suicide program. Now, I'm never very good with these. There we go. So a little bit about who we are. We're a national organisation. We're based in Boringsville, Hawthorn in Melbourne. There's about 80 of us. We only have the one office, and our work applies nationally right across the place. There's about 80 of us. In the men's program, there's about 6 of us dedicated to men's health, but the truth is that there's not a single person in our organisation that doesn't deal with men's mental health in some way. We've got 5 broad strategic directions. Most people, our research shows that 9 out of 10 Australians have heard of Beyond Blue. Most of those 9 out of 10 people know about depression and anxiety, but their level of understanding about depression and anxiety still requires a bit more work. These are our 5 priority areas. I think probably the other thing that I ought to say is that about 12, 18 months ago, we were fortunate enough to engage a very good colleague of mine now, a woman called Susan Beaton, who's our suicide prevention advisor. As a result, we've changed our strategic directions to now include suicide prevention as part of our work. So the fourth strategic direction is really about acknowledging the impact of suicide through death. Our work really covers a range of different areas. So we basically work at the life stage level. We work across gender. We just don't do men's health work. A lot of people think that Beyond Blue only focuses on men's health. That's not the case. We're actually doing some great work for those people who actually don't fit the norms of male or female as well. We also work across a range of priority communities: gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, intersex, culturally, linguistically diverse people, Aboriginal people, and so forth. And we also work across a range of settings. So we've heard a lot about workplaces today and the important role that workplaces have in dealing with depression and anxiety. Okay, so what does depression and anxiety really mean? What's its impact? The World Health Organization tells us that by the end of this decade, it'll be probably the second largest health problem in the world. not just Australia, but in the world. In Australia, just to localise that a bit more, about 1 million people live with depression, and about 2 million people or more actually live with anxiety at any one time. And I think Leslie, who might have gone now, talked about the cost impact of suicide. Now, there's lots of people who have done work on that. We've done some work on the cost impact of depression and anxiety in Australia, and we estimate that it's about $8 billion. Focusing on men specifically, in Australia, at any one time, in their lifetime, 1 in 8 men will experience depression, and 1 in 5 men will experience anxiety. And the truth is that these things actually affect men probably at the prime of their life, in their most productive years, in the years when they are busy with their careers, their families, their children, and all those sorts of things. I think the last point's probably the most interesting for me, and that is that probably about 1/3 of all men will actually seek some sort of professional help for their mental health. We are not very good as men at getting help for physical health, let alone mental health. In relation to suicide, the latest stats that we have, the latest clean stats, because they review them and update them and polish them up, are that nearly 2,300 people every year kill themselves in Australia. What that translates to is 6 deaths every day in Australia, of which 5 are by men. I think that's an incredibly devastating impact. It's the #1 killer. Suicide is the #1 killer of men at the prime of their life, in those years between 15 and almost 50. It's the second most preventable cause of death for young men under the age of 25. And it is the highest, suicide is the highest rate of death amongst 75 plus men. So I think they're all pretty good reasons why we've got a men's mental health program at Beyond Blue. We've done quite a lot of work in trying to understand how men's brains work. Not sure that I'm much wiser, actually. What we have actually learnt, though, is that in relation to depression and anxiety, men are aware of depression and anxiety, but they're not very confident at understanding the signs and the symptoms and what that means for themselves. In fact, men are much better at recognising physical ailments and symptoms than they are emotional. We know that men are less likely to use health services, and specifically for mental health. And we also know that for a lot of men, there is a strong level of stigma associated with not only seeking help, but actually experiencing depression and anxiety. So all of those are barriers, clear barriers to seeking help. And unfortunately, men tend to view help seeking or getting help as a sign of weakness and failure. Does that resonate with anybody? We've also done quite a lot of work in trying to understand what are the most effective ways to communicate with men about depression and anxiety and help seeking. Our research shows that you really do need to tailor your messages in the way in which you communicate. We've learned that language is important. We've already heard about that from Sally earlier on. We actually have conducted a pretty extensive focus groups across the country. And one of the interesting things for me was that when men started talking about getting help, it was like sticking their head in a bucket of water, really. They just didn't listen. So we've had to really reframe our language. So it's much more active and much more positive. So we talk about taking action rather than seeking help, taking action and taking control. We've also learnt that men, it's probably true for everybody, but men in particular really need concrete, tangible pathways. Men really like checklists and tick boxes and all those sorts of things. So we've tried to build some of that in our work at Beyond Blue. We've actually tried to reframe some of the way in which we present our and articulate our messages to men. Men don't like surprises. So you can't really ask men to go and see someone without them really understanding what to expect at the other end. So being very clear and articulate about that up front is really important to actually getting men to take some action. We've also heard a fair bit this morning about people talking about personal experiences and personal stories. And our research shows that men actually respond very well to hearing other men talk about their experience. Real men, not high-profile celebrities, but real men. That's not to say that celebrities don't have a role. Celebrities have an important role in providing leadership and encouraging conversations about depression, anxiety and suicide. We've also, and this won't come as a surprise, but we know that men value privacy and discretion. The sorts of things that we do need to ensure that men feel safe in their ability to communicate about depression and anxiety. We also know that men prefer digital media platforms as a form of communication. The internet provides a safe place for men to go and indulge and search out information. It's private, it's anonymous, it's 24/7, you can access it from anywhere. And I often refer to the internet as men's Dr. Google. I think we've all probably done that at some point. The truth is that older men are probably not that comfortable with the internet, so we do need tailored and different responses for men in that sense. So I'll talk a little bit about man therapy. And it's great to meet Sally, who's had a critical role in sort of pulling this together. So we're absolutely indebted to you, although we think that our man therapy is much better than yours.
A little bit of a global competition, and it's really fun. So they had about $3 million more money than we had. They're getting a bit of a head start.
Our man therapy campaign centres around a character called Dr. Brian Ironwood. Dr. Brian Ironwood's got a number of qualifications. He's got a PhD. I think the little letters are up on the screen somewhere. He has a doctorate of manliness. He has a doctorate of every sport known to man. And he's got a master of my own brain. Dr. Brian tries to use straight talk. He's very direct, a bit of humour, he's a bit rhetorical, and he's a bit masculine, he's a bit butch, he's a little bit on the daggy side. We've found that guys under 25 don't like him that much, and inner city yuppies certainly don't like him much at all. But that's okay, we know who he works for, and we've actually done quite a lot of work at targeting him directly to those people who he does work for and who we want to engage with. So it centres around a website, and I'll show you a bit of that later on. And what we've also done, just so that we're not just having a bit of fun, is that we're actually properly evaluating this. So we've engaged an independent third party to evaluate this all the way through. So we did a whole lot of surveys before we launched the campaign back in June last year. Surveyed 1,000 men randomly across the country, and we'll be doing that again in March, actually. Mid-March. But we also survey 100 men every week so that we can monitor trends and changes and reactions to the campaign during the campaign. By the way, we've engaged Ipsos, and in the next couple of days I'll be releasing the second quarterly stakeholder report. So if you're interested in that, go straight to our website. So our objectives for the Man Therapy campaign are sort of pretty simple, pretty clear: to increase understanding about depression and anxiety, to reduce stigma associated with depression and anxiety, and to encourage men to take action. We want to move a little bit beyond just knowing about depression and anxiety, but really getting men to understand what the signs and symptoms are and what impact they can have at a personal level. Who are we targeting? It's pretty clear, men, men, men. There are three men up on the screen there. There's Greg, who's a 26-year-old young man who moved from rural Queensland to Sydney. There's Jono, who's the middle guy in the middle. He's a middle manager in the public service, and he lives in the outer Melbourne. And the third guy is Mitch, and he lives in South Australia, not in Adelaide, and he's the CEO of a small company. These guys, in some ways, reflect the sort of people who we're targeting. So they essentially are, there we go, under the age of 55, outer urban and rural. Some of them are unemployed. Some of them use alcohol and drugs. Some of them are fathers, and then there's a secondary bunch of audiences. In our initial research building and working towards a man therapy campaign, we actually investigated and looked very carefully at the role that women might have in men's mental health and help seeking. And it wasn't that great, really. They weren't that helpful. Okay, so the Man Therapy website it's structured around 4 broad areas. There's the therapy section, man therapies as we call them, lots of DIY stuff, lots of self-help stuff, links to discussion forums, links to things that you can do that are simple, tangible, and take out messages. And there's also a link to a place where you can actually locate health professionals if you want to go down that path. There's the Man Facts section, which has lots and lots of facts and figures. It tries to use a bit of humour and a bit of straight talk. It's everything you need to know, really, about depression and anxiety. And again, a lot of this is based on the American model, which we've adapted and redrafted so that it's much more user-friendly in an Australian environment. There's the 18-point quiz, and that's a validated quiz. We've pretty much used the American version again. We've adapted the language a little bit, but the core principles of that are the same. That's what Dr. Bryan looks like. I should have said that. I should have shown that a bit earlier. My apologies. And that's what the website looks like. Since I put this presentation together, we've actually refreshed the website a little bit. We did some more user testing, got some more intensive feedback. We've repositioned things a little bit. We've emphasised the mind quiz a bit more. We've emphasised the telephone and the red flare. It doesn't really look like a red flare, but if you click on that, it takes you directly to information around 24 immediate support. The blue phone takes you straight to the Beyond Blue telephone support service and web chat. So we've just emphasised those things a little bit more and streamlined the usability. We also made this optimised for mobile and tablet use. 40% of all men who, sorry, I shouldn't say men because we actually don't know the gender of the people who access the Man Therapy website, but 40% of people who access the website come through a mobile means. What else can I say about that? It's pretty self-explanatory. When you click onto it, you're confronted with a series of videos. You can switch those off, you can switch those on. They're pretty simple to work your way around. The fourth component of the website is the Tales of Triumph. They're the personal stories that we talked about earlier on. And there's 6 guys, just very ordinary guys. You know, one's a HR manager in a company in rural South Australia. There's Alan from Canberra, who's an ex-policeman. There's Les is the HR guy. There's Damien, there's Ollie. I've got a video to show later on if we've got time, but you can very easily jump on the website and have a look at these. I want to build on these stories, and that was one of the ideas that came out of our conversation with Sally, and have a whole database of them. So we'll be working a bit more on that over the next several months. So the key messages for men through our Man Therapy campaign are really simple. Know the signs, know your options, make a plan, and take action. They're the 4 key messages that we're trying to get out to men through the Man Therapy campaign. So promoting the campaign, a number of people saw it during the cricket season last couple of weeks ago. That was our 3rd wave of advertising or promoting the campaign. We had a big burst back in June last year when we launched the campaign. We took a month's break to see what happened, and of course the visitations to the site died right down. We had a second go back in September, October last year. Again, a swell of response. And then we took a bit of a break over the Christmas period and got straight back into sport. Right. Not sure what happened then. I didn't press anything. So it's the range of different media that we're promoting the campaign through. There's no question that TV is very powerful. In fact, all of those medium are powerful, but don't underestimate the power of digital. At the moment, we're actually having a fairly intensive campaign using digital platform, and we've engaged a new creative young woman who's come up with some fantastic ideas. As a result of that, the last week has resulted in more visits to the Man Therapy website than we've had in any other week since we launched the campaign. So it's a really exciting way to actually deliver your messages. So there's a whole lot of new collateral that's developed, things like carousels. I'd never heard of those before, but a carousel is essentially a rotating set of images. You can click on that and it takes you directly back into the website. Some of our new collateral now actually poses questions rather than just promoting Dr. Brian, and those questions take you straight into the quiz. So we're actually trying to drive more traffic into the quiz and trying to get more men to engage with the quiz itself. I've got some ads to show you, but this is where I'm going to need a bit of help down the other end. This is the first of the ads.
A man has his own way of doing things. A man has his own way of eating, of exercising, of keeping his hands warm, and filing stuff. The other filing. So when a man faces the serious stuff life chucks at him, like stress, anger, difficulty sleeping, drinking too much, or sadness, shouldn't a man have a way to deal with that too? Well, now he does. I'm Dr. Brian Ironwood. Visit me at mantherapy.org.au.
That's the first of the 30-second ads. There's a 15-second ad. We'll push through these pretty quickly.
They've given me a measly 15 seconds to inform you of my new website, mantherapy.org.au. It's a place where men can go to tackle man life problems like sadness and anger. I'm Dr. Brian Ironwood. End transmission now.
Our creative company tried to use what they were given, so they were given 15 seconds, so that was their response. There's another 30-second ad, and this is where Dr. Brian sits in his shed. We all know about the power of the men's sheds movement in the country.
A man has his own way of doing things. A man has his own way of relaxing, preparing a meal, cleaning up, and hiding stuff. But when a man faces the serious things life chucks at him, like stress, anger, difficulty sleeping, drinking too much, or sadness, shouldn't a man have a way to deal with that too? Well, now he does. I'm Dr. Brian Ironwood. Visit me at mantherapy.org.au.
I love those surfboards. And this is the 15-second ad.
I'm Dr. Brian Ironwood, and this is a plug for my new website, mantherapy.org.au. It's a place where men can go to really drill into man life problems like anxiety and depression.
It's not very often you hear Dr. Brian actually use the words depression and anxiety. And that's been very deliberate from our point of view. Most of his dialogue, when you go on site, focuses around the symptoms and what you can do rather than trying to diagnose or label the conditions. Couple of radio ads. Pick one of those, the middle one.
Dr. Brian Ironwood here, man therapist. Men do lots of things with their ears. They listen to sport.
Still going, brought down at the 50!
They're partners.
Are you listening to me?
But the one thing they don't use their ears for is listening to their inner voice. The one that knows something's not right in their life. The one that talks to them about deep-fried inner feelings rather than deep-fried pork chops. That's why I created mantherapy.org.au, a place for men to deal with manly issues in a manly way. So men, go to mantherapy.org.au and sort your shit out.
And the occasional bleep. A bit of the some of the posters and other collateral that we have. Therapy so manly to put hairs on your brain. We all know about WD-40. And these are con ads that are used in toilets. I'll let you guess which ones go behind toilet doors versus above the urinal. And this is a not very good attempt by me to give you a selection of our digital display banners. It's not very good, I apologise for that. But we have very much tried to integrate these into those sites that men go to most of all. So we've done some great research in identifying what are the sites that men visit. So dating sites are very popular, car sale sites are very popular, real estate's very popular, and so forth. It would be remiss of me to say that we aren't doing work for other subpopulation groups. We are. For men under the age of 25, we're running the Youth Beyond Blue campaign. There's a dedicated website around that. For men over 55, we're focusing our energy around the Shed Online, Australia's largest men's shed. I encourage you to go and have a look at it. We are currently running a campaign that's embedded in the current festival season in gay culture around Mardi Gras and Midsummer and whatever the festival is called in Brisbane. We are doing some interesting work with SBS around culturally and linguistically diverse men, and we've got a fantastic program that's involving Aboriginal men in local Aboriginal radio stations telling their personal story. And we're collecting all of those and placing them into a central database so that they can be accessible by anybody to listen to. And they're fantastic. So where are we at? 6 months. This morning I was able to learn that we had our 500,000th visitor to the Man Therapy website. As I said, we had more visits in the last week than we've had in any other week, but we finally have reached that 500,000 mark. Our target population group is about 5.5 million men across the country. We're getting there. In the last week alone, we had 60% of all visits to the Man Therapy website from mobile devices. That'll probably drop back again to about 40 or 50%, but it's an important trend. If you're wanting to communicate with men through digital platforms, your work has to be digitally optimised for mobile technology. 30% of all of our visitors have interacted with the quiz site. I want to push that up to 50% to get deeper engagement from men. Last week we had an average of 6 minutes on the website. Now that's a bit of a record. For anybody that works with websites, that's a pretty good success story. Our goal is to maintain that. It'll probably fall back again to about 4 or 5 minutes. An average of 3 visits per site. The last couple of points come from Ipsos. What they've told us is that 35% of men that they've asked about Man Therapy are aware of it. So that's a prompted awareness level that's pretty good. When we've extrapolated all that data, about 5% of the nation's men are aware of this campaign and have engaged with it in some way. So that's not a bad success rate for us so far. And the other couple of points are also pretty critical. The men that we've surveyed have said that they are likely to take action as a result of having seen the website, and they are likely to tell their mates about it. So we're really pleased with this campaign. We think that we've taken a great product and made it greater, and we want to continue to work on it and build on it. We've got some ideas about the next stage of the campaign, and we love your feedback as well. Please feel free to access the website anytime, and if you want any more information about the work that we're doing, just go straight to the Beyond Blue website. Okay. They're my contact details.